Welcome back to the Glebe Gallery and to this series of videos that looks at An Tír Mhór, which was the exhibition that we developed using the Derek Hill collection for the summer of 2020. In the first video, we looked at how we developed the exhibition and what went into putting it together. And in the second video, we looked at the 4 themes in the show. In this, the final video in the series, we're going to take a very critical look at how the exhibition works. Before we look at An Tír Mhór, I want to talk a little bit about contemporary art and get you thinking about contemporary art, because I think it's a useful way to approach all art. So contemporary art is new art that was made in the last 10 years. That's a very simple definition, but it can be really helpful. And by new art, we mean art where the artist was trying to do something that hadn't been done before. So when you go to see a contemporary art exhibition, it's very difficult to know if it's any good or not. And in a sense, you're on the bus along with the critics and historians and even the artists themselves. It's so fresh that they're not even sure if they've got it right. So in a sense, everybody's looking at it for the first time. Everybody's trying to make sense of it. And it's really exciting. It's where the action is in the art world. The only way you can really tell if art is good or not, though, is if it stands the test of time. So if you're still looking at it in 50 years or 100 years, then it's safe enough to say that it does have value and that it did have value when it was made. And that's where everything in this exhibition fits in, because all of this art was new and fresh and young and exciting when it was made. So some of it may look a little bit past its best. But remember, when it was made, this was all really exciting and really challenging. And there's a difference between contemporary art and modern art. Modern art's a lot older than a lot of people think. Modern art has its origins in the 1870s, 1880s with Impressionism. Derek Hill collected these artworks in the 1950s, 60s and 70s. So if you like, a lot of people have gotten off the bus about these artists and these artworks. Other artists and critics and historians, and even people that go to exhibitions a lot, know these artists, they know the names, and they have decided that they're good. You're seeing it for the first time though, so it is new to you, and I would really strongly encourage you to push back. And if it doesn't mean anything to you, and if it doesn't speak to you, then own that and be comfortable with it. And really all you have to do is to explain why it doesn't work. And similarly, it's not good enough to like this or love it and leave it at that. You also have to try and make meaning from it, and you have to explain what that meaning was. And really the crucial thing is that art can be beautiful, but it doesn't have to be beautiful. What it has to be is meaningful, and you should try and make a connection with it. And if you can't connect with it, then you should be able to explain why you dismiss it. I'm going to use a lot of slides as we're going through this video, so it's a good idea to take screenshots. And also some of them have quite long interpretation panels, and you can screenshot them as well and then go back to them and take your time reading them. So we'll start with the first theme in the exhibition, which is the theme based around the most important artworks in the collection. And that breaks down very neatly into 2 groups. There's a group of individual pictures that people just really respond well to. And there's the theme based around Tory Island. And the most outstanding thing about Derek Hill and the Glebe Gallery and his great legacy is his association with Tory Island. You can check out this video for a little bit more information about that. And we tried to tell that story with only 7 pictures, and of those pictures, 3 of them only had very basic information. So there was only 4 sets of paragraphs that tried to explain the story. But that theme, the theme of the most striking artworks in the collection, was also separated in the exhibition in that some of it was downstairs and some of it was upstairs. So behind me, you have one of the Tory Island pictures, James Dixon's aerial view of Tory Island. And above it, you have a picture by a Japanese artist called Hokusai and by an Irish artist called Roderick O'Connor. The theme's kind of left alone then, and the Tory part of it is picked up upstairs with one of Derek Hill's landscapes on Tory Island and two of his portraits and two more James Dixon pictures, including West End Village, the one that we spoke about in earlier videos. So the criticism would be that, well, first of all, the artworks aren't together, so it's difficult to know which theme you're looking at. And the second thing is that the Tory Island story isn't told sequentially. It starts with James Dixon and then it hops to Derek Hill and back to James Dixon and back to Derek Hill. So straight away there's a really good criticism that the exhibition was a bit jumpy. You never knew which theme you were looking at, and even the Tory Island theme, there just wasn't enough to tell the story. There was only 7 pictures and they weren't together. But by spreading the themes out and by mixing them together, we hoped that we could tell the story of the whole collection so that the themes don't work independently, that they are mixed together. And it is a bit like one of those movies where you have flashbacks and you have maybe 2 characters that never really get to meet until the very end. The first painting in the exhibition is by the Irish artist Jack Butler Yeats, and it's called Fairy Early Morning. And if you just look at the label, you can see that the information is really basic. It tells you the name of the artwork. It's undated. We don't know when it was painted. It tells you the name of the artist and when the artist lived. And it tells you the medium. It's oil on panel, and the size. There's nothing in this information that would help you to make a connection with the artwork though. So what we do as curators is we have interpretive panels. Some curators really like to have a lot of information on the panels and they really editorialize and they give you their opinion. And other curators don't like labels and like to keep the information very basic. And I tend to fall into that second group. I tend to not like a lot of information. Now, some curators will hide the labels in the exhibition and make it really difficult. They'll put them all in a corner and you'll have to try and figure out which artwork they refer to. And then other curators like to give a lot of opinion. The National Park Service of America have a lovely phrase that they use. They say that information is not interpretation. So what you're looking at here is just information and it's not really all that helpful to you. But if you go a step further and give a lot of opinion and a little bit more interpretation about the artwork, that can be really helpful, but it can also be very biased. It can lead you a little bit too much. So it's difficult to strike the balance. And when you look at a label, the first paragraph tends to be pure information. And then the further down you go, it's more opinion and more interpretation. And keep that in mind when you're looking at exhibitions, because there is a bias always at play in an exhibition. The second theme in the exhibition is where each of the staff members here at the Glebe selected their favourite artworks from the collection. And this was the most popular theme in the exhibition among our visitors. And I think it's because we wrote the labels ourselves. So you're in absolutely no doubt that this is our opinion from the outset. And we signed our names to the bottom of these labels to make it very clear that this was our opinion. We also invited regular visitors to the gallery, people who were really familiar with the collection, to suggest artworks and to write the labels. And one really lovely thing happened where 2 of Derek's friends, Brian and Denise Ferrin, asked if they could choose 2 portraits of Derek's housekeeper, Gracie McDermott. Gracie was Derek Hill's housekeeper for the 30 years that he lived here, and she was really important to him, but also to the house and to his friends and visitors, and she's really folded into the story of the house. But we never really explored that until now. And it was just a very gentle way of looking at Gracie and at her time here and at her as a person. The third theme in the exhibition is a collection of pictures that are hidden in our collection. They're hidden both because they don't fit into those big themes like Derrick Hill and Tory Island and Donegal, but they're also hidden because they tend to be quite small and overpowered by the things around them. But when you do pull them out and give them a bit of space and put them on a white wall and shine a light on them, they're wonderful paintings. And the final theme, the one that uses Derrick Hill's ties as a starting point for an exhibition that we're trying to develop, was the most difficult theme in the exhibition. Because we had commissioned some writers to respond to Derrick's ties, and we had asked them to have that ready for the end of June when we thought we were going to open, but that was pulled forward to the start of June, so the work wasn't ready. So that exhibition began with just the painting of Derrick by his friend Derek Greaves, and with a label saying the work was coming. It was a great exercise for us though, because we learned so much about what the final exhibition will look like. First of all, we learned that the stories have to be really short. They have to be less than 200 words, because any more than that is just too much. And I think we could have framed the ties a little bit better. I think the stories, which are artworks in themselves, kind of look more like labels. They don't have the sort of gravitas that you would like them to have. And I think when we're doing the exhibition, what we'll do is we'll put the story and the tie in the frame together rather than separately like they are in the exhibition. Also, I think it will be important to label the tie and say what the tie is and who made it and the materials, a bit like the painting labels. So I think that while that was a really good exercise for us as curators, the risk we were running is that it just wasn't good enough to show to people, to put it on display on walls in a museum. And that's something you could maybe pick up and think about. We conduct visitor surveys every summer, and these are really useful for planning ahead and for seeing what worked and what didn't work. But they really are all about learning from your mistakes, because by the time the survey is complete and analysed, it's too late to change anything in the exhibition. It's very difficult to change temporary exhibitions or to fix temporary exhibitions anyway, because the things that you've borrowed kind of have to stay where they are. You can't really borrow from another institution and decide it doesn't work and take it out of an exhibition halfway through. But because the exhibition ran for so long, we were able to conduct enough surveys and get enough responses to build up a picture of what was working and, more importantly, what wasn't working, and to fix that by adding labels or changing labels or by adding artworks. And because of the restrictions that were in place at the start of the summer when we opened, we had spaced the exhibition out, so there were gaps that could be filled. And we did a little bit of that and added a few things to the exhibition throughout the summer. Museums and galleries are full of biases, and it would be foolish to think otherwise. The artists, the collectors have their own politics and their own beliefs. The funders of the institution, whether they be private funders or governments or corporations, they have things they like to see and things they don't like to see, and criticisms they don't like to hear. And also, though, the curators have biases. There's things that we like and we don't like. And when you're conducting a survey like this, there are people that like to take part in these surveys and there are people that don't like to take part in them. And generally the people that like to take part in these surveys are the ones that really liked the exhibition or really didn't like the exhibition, and you often don't get a lot of the middle ground. So you have to keep that in mind when you're interpreting what you discover. Gallery staff asked visitors questions when they were leaving the exhibition, and we know that's a flawed process, but we'll just go through the results anyway because they were really useful. The first question we asked was what visitors liked about the exhibition. 50% of visitors liked the label, 25% liked James Dixon paintings, and 25% liked the Derrick Hill paintings, and 25% liked the exhibition design, the layout. They liked the sparseness of it. So in spite of our reservations, people really liked the labels, and I think that's maybe because there were so few pictures in the exhibitions. There was a lot of space, there was room to elaborate with the text. The second question we asked was more important. We asked people what they didn't like about the exhibition, and 33% of people said they would have liked to have seen more in the exhibition. And I think that told us that we hadn't explained why there was so little in the exhibition. So we added a label. We added this label that explained about the physical distance. And only one person didn't like the fact that the physical distancing was built into the exhibition. We then asked visitors for suggestions about how we could improve the exhibition. And this was quite interesting because they were mostly things that we had considered but weren't able to do. So things like QR codes, larger text, audio guide, better lighting. And for one reason or another, usually related to coronavirus, either we couldn't access the professionals to do the work or we didn't want people handling things. But there tended to be a reason why we couldn't have done those things, but we had thought about them to begin with. So that was nice. It showed us that our process was working. And then we asked those sort of yes, no, tick box questions. We asked people if they would recommend the exhibition to friends. Most of them said yes. Some said they would wait until the house was open again so they could get the full experience. We asked people would they come back to the exhibition themselves, and most people said they would, that they really enjoyed it. And we looked for their nationality and their family unit or group unit and their age. In hindsight, we would have added another question there. We would have asked people if it was their first visit to the gallery, because we feel that most of our visitors this summer were repeat visitors. And then the important question, did you learn anything from the exhibition? A third of our visitors felt that they did learn something about Derrick Hill and James Dixon and Tory Island. It was such an unusual year this year. We would normally expect to see about 20,000 people in July and August visit the gallery. This year there was only about 8,000, and the vast majority of those were from Ireland or from Northern Ireland, and even people with foreign accents tended to be living and working in Ireland. So we weren't getting any foreign visitors, and the vast majority of them were probably repeat visitors. That's what we expected, and we designed an exhibition that would be fulfilling for someone who had seen the collection a number of times in the past. And I think we were very successful with that. You as Leaving Cert students possibly haven't seen the collection before, or if you have, maybe only once or twice. So you're not the visitor that we surveyed here, and I think it will be completely justified for you to say that the exhibition didn't speak to you. There are less than 40 artworks in the exhibition, so that's not a lot of pictures, and they cover a lot of ground. There's Tory Island and Donegal, there's Ireland, then there's all over Europe, and there's even some pictures from Japan. So it's very hard to make that gel, to make it into a comprehensive story or a complete story. There's also a lot of different art. You have folk art like the James Dixon here, you have expressionism and impressionism, you have abstract art. So the artworks don't tell one particular story. I want to thank you for watching these videos. I hope they've been helpful, and I want to wish you the very best of luck in your preparation for your Leaving Cert and in your exams. And you know, nothing can really substitute for the experience of going into a gallery and standing in front of artwork and getting to know it. So I want to encourage you to do just that once you get the opportunity.